Welcome to IB Maths Made Easy. This is Chapter 12, Statistics, and what we'll be covering in this video is the measures of center of data and choosing the correct one, frequency tables, grouped data, spread of data, box and whisker diagrams, outliers, and cumulative frequency graphs, as well as variance and standard deviation. So there are three measures of center you should know: the mean, median, and a mode. And what these three are, we'll start from the bottom actually. So the mode is the most occurring number in a data set. So say you have a data set of 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, then the mode is 3. The median is the middle value. So if you have a data set of 7 values, then you take the middle one, which would be the fourth one, because that has 3 on the right side of it and 3 on the left, so that's the median. In a data set with an even number of data points, then the median is the average of the two middle ones. So if you have a data set of 4 points, then you take the middle 2 and average them, and that's the median. And the mean is the most common one. It's known as the average, and it's the sum of all the numbers over how many numbers there are, and that's what this notation is. So the sum of all the x's, or all the numbers, over the number of data points there are. So there are strengths and weaknesses for each measure of center. The mode only takes into account the most occurring number. It doesn't take into account anything else, so it would only give you that. The median only takes the middle number, so it's only affected by the middle numbers. But it gives you the halfway point of the data. And the mean is the most common one, most commonly used. It takes all the values into account, but it can be affected by extreme values or outliers. So when you have a set of data, you just need to consider all of these differences and choose the correct measure of center. Sometimes you might get frequency tables like this one, and they'll ask you to calculate the mean, median, or mode. And how you do this, so the mode is the easiest. You just look at the frequency and take the highest number. So frequency of 4 is the highest, so the mode is 2. The mean, you'd add up all of these, so you do 1 times 3, 2 times 4, 3 times 1, 4 times 1. Add all of those up, get the total, and divide it by this. So 4 plus 3 plus 1 plus 1, so 9. So that's how you get the mean. And the median, you'd look at, so there's 9 data points, right? And you want to take the middle one. So you do that by finding the middle data point. So 9, if you have 9 data points, it would be 5, because 9 plus 1 over 2 is 5. And then you just look for where the 5th data point is. So is it in this one? No, the first 3 are in this one. But then the next 4, that includes the 5th one. So then it would be 2. And if this was grouped data, so maybe it was 1 to 5, and 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, then what you do, you actually just take the midpoint of the two values. So 10 to 15, you do 10 plus 15 divided by 2, so 12.5, and you'd use that value to find the mean. So you do 12.5 times 4, or something like that. Now, for measures of the spread of data, we have 4 different ways to measure it. We'll only be looking at 2 right now, and the other 2 later. The other 2 are variance and standard deviation, a bit more complicated. So for the time being, we'll look at range and interquartile range. So the range is just the maximum value minus the minimum value, so the highest minus the smallest. But interquartile range is, you'll see it's Q3 minus Q1. And that might not mean anything to you at the moment, but what Q3 and Q1 are, they're the sort of the medians of the different sides of the median, if that makes sense. So you've got a data set of 9 values. The median is the 5th data value there. And then you've got 4 on each side, so you find the median of each side. So here it's the middle, so it's the average of these two, the 2nd and the 3rd values. So that's Q1, because it's the median, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the one. And then on this side, it's the average of the 7th and the 8th values, so that's Q3. And then once you find those, you just do Q3 minus Q1, and that's your interquartile range. And following on from that, this is a box and whisker diagram. Sometimes it could be called a 5-number summary, because you need 5 numbers to make it. And what it is, so you've got the box and the whiskers. So this, starting from left to right, so this is the minimum value, and it's just got a straight line until it reaches the box. So the start of the box is Q1, and then we have the median, which is a vertical line in the middle of the box, or wherever the median is. And then we have Q3 and the maximum. And this is quite a useful diagram because we can find lots of things just from looking at it. So the range is just the maximum minus the minimum. And then we have the interquartile range, which is Q3 minus Q1, if you remember. So that's the interquartile range. And generally speaking, if a question asks you this, what you can say is that 25% of data is in each section of the box and whisker diagram. So you could say 25% is in this bit between the minimum and Q1, and then Q1 and the median 25%, median and Q3 25%, and then Q3 and max 25%. That's generally speaking, not all the time. Sometimes you might have to compare two different box and whisker plots. So it might say which one has the biggest spread of data, and you could say obviously the first one does because it's got a bigger range. And then you could say maybe this one's got a higher interquartile range. It depends on the data. And then it could say which one has a higher average. Just look at the the median. And then another thing they might ask you to do is sometimes plot the data from a box and whisker plot onto a graph. And how you do that is you look at the minimum and you put a little thing there. Q1, so you build up to Q1, and then median, so the biggest one there, and so you sort of just plot it on how you see it. So you do the minimum, maximum, interquartile range, all of that. And to find an outlier in a data set, what you do, you look at the different quartiles. So to find the outlier at the higher end of the data, you do Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR, and IQR stands for interquartile range. So Q3 plus 1.5 times interquartile range. And for an outlier on the lower side of data, to see if there's an actual outlier, you do Q1, or the lower quartile, minus 1.5 times the interquartile range, and that's how you find outliers. And we've already sort of covered this before, but this is a cumulative frequency graph. And what you can do, you can find out where the data is distributed by finding Q1, the median, Q3, and the max and the minimum. And so as we said before, 25% of the data is between the minimum and Q1, 25% between Q1 and the median, 25% between the median and Q3, and then the final 25% between Q3 and the maximum. And on a cumulative frequency graph, you can sort of illustrate that out, adding little dotted lines below. So sometimes you might have the cumulative frequency, say there's 250 full players, and then you might have percentile on this side, and what that means is like what percent of people is it. So at the top it would be 100, the 100th percentile, at the bottom would be the null percentile, 0, and in the middle would be about 50, and you'd see how many, you could say how many people are above the 25th percentile, etc. Now onto the final topic, variance and standard deviation. So these are both measures of spread of data, and the variance, generally you use your calculator to do this, so you wouldn't have to actually do it in an exam, but it's good to know the formula. It's the sum of each value minus the mean, so this strange u is the mean. I think it's called a mu, so that data point minus the mean squared to ensure you get a positive value. The sum of all of those over how many data points there is the variance. And you might notice there's a problem because this part is squared, but the actual value isn't squared. And so standard deviation fixes that, and it's just the square root of the same thing. Generally, you won't really need to know these, but it's useful to know. Most times you'll just use your calculator to enter data and then find out the standard deviation. Thank you for watching. This has been IB Maths Made Easy. This was Chapter 12, Statistics. I hope this helped, and come back and watch the rest of our videos. Thank you.